I think I encouraged people well. And I think that's one of the primary things a boss of scientists and engineers should do. Scientists and engineers, they're self-motivated. But like everybody else, they worry about things, And I think if you can make them feel secure in their job, secure in their future, make them feel that you want them to develop themselves and be recognized and rewarded for their great work, they'll just work that much harder.
In February, it was announced that after more than 2 decades of extraordinary leadership, Dr. Paul Nielsen will transition out of his role as the Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Software Engineering Institute at Carnegie Mellon University. Welcome to the SEI podcast series. My name is Matthew Butkovic. I'm the Technical Director of Cyber Risk and Resilience in the CERT division here at Carnegie Mellon University's Software Engineering Institute. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Paul Nielsen to discuss his incredible career and his plans after he transitions out of his current role. First, Paul, let's talk about your accomplishment and background. Prior to joining the SEI, Dr. Nielsen served 32 years in the United States Air Force as a Major General and Commander of the Air Force Research Lab, AFRL. At AFRL, he managed a team of about 10,000 military and civilian personnel and had an annual budget of approximately $3.5 billion. Yeah. A big responsibility. His career in research and development also included positions at various federally funded organizations such as the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, and Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. After joining the SEI in August of 2004, Paul oversaw 2 decades of tremendous growth and brought about modern practices in software, the advancements in cybersecurity, as well as the founding of the Artificial Intelligence Division in 2021. It's my great honor to be with you today, sir, and talk about your legacy.
Oh, it's nice to be here, Matt. Thanks so much.
Well, we typically start off, Paul, with our guests telling them a little about their path to the SEI. So maybe you're the things that we've covered the high spots accomplishment-wise, but maybe if we roll back a little further, if we think about your maybe your education, your path to this role.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of people that end up scientists and engineers, I was always interested in science and engineering, even as a little kid. And the first person that really made me feel special academically was my 3rd grade teacher. And this was an older lady, Mrs. Virginia Smith. I'll always remember her. And I was new to that school. My family had moved, and I was new to the school. And, trying to make friends. Everybody else already knew each other. And at one point, she said they were going to have a reading contest. And I was pretty excited about that because I was already a pretty good reader. And I thought the contest was going to be, on how many books you could read in a certain period or everything. And I thought I could do pretty good. So when the class was over and we all started to leave, she said, "Oh, Paul, I want to talk to you." And she said, "You're not going to be in the contest." And I went, "Oh." And she said, no, I've got a special book I want you to read, and it's going to take you a while to read it. And I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Well, what's the name of the book?" And she said, "It's the Iliad by Homer."
This is the 3rd grade.
Yeah, I was only 7 years old. And I said, "Well, okay." And this she brought this book out to me, and it was one of these old bound books. It was maybe, I don't know how many pages, but a thick book with little print. It wasn't a child's version. And she said, "It'll probably take you a month or more to read this." And she was right. But I read that, and it was like a gift. Because when I finished, I realized I could read anything. If you could read that book, you could read anything. And so from then on, I'd go to the library with my mom, especially in the summertime. And I didn't go to the kids section. I went to any section and checked out books on science. I ended up, because of the Iliad, reading a lot about mythology and Greek history, And it was just a gift, like I said. Now, she was a great teacher to kind of spur me on that way, but we've all had so many great teachers in our lives, and I had a bunch. They really made a difference in my life in high school, in college, in grad school. But more than that, of course, your mother and father, and you learn from your peers. And, you learn from every job you have. And one thing I always was taught is never stop learning. So I've continued to try to learn while I was here.
That is such a great sentiment, right? And your story is such a wonderful reminder of the power of mentors.
Yes.
And connecting people with concepts and pathways that aren't intuitive. A question, Paul, then, why did you select a career in the military? Why the Air Force?
Well, okay, so you got to remember the time I was growing up. I was born in 51. So as I was coming up to 17 and 18, Vietnam was on, and we still had a draft. Everybody was going to serve, maybe before college, maybe after college, maybe instead of college. I knew that was going to be in my future, and I thought, well, if I chose to go to one of the service academies, and I went to the Air Force Academy, then at least I would get my education done before I served. And plus, I'd go to the Air Force, which I thought was a nice modern service. So I applied. You have to get an appointment to the academy. I got an appointment from my congressman and went off. And I can't say it was always fun, but it was a great choice that I made. And I got a really good education, and that led me into my career in the Air Force. Like a lot of people, in those days when you went to the academy, you had to have a 5-year commitment when you left. I wasn't so sure if I was going to make a full career out of it, but I was ready to do my 5 years. But then they sent me to grad school for a year. They gave me some interesting assignments. Before you know it, you're almost at 20 years, and then they continued to give me interesting assignments. So I made it a pretty long career, a 32-year career.
And then you were able to continue that service and national defense mission here at the SCI.
Yes, and that's an important point because if you're a general in the Air Force in my time, they'd send you to a course on retirement. And they would do that in a way that it didn't say you were going to retire because they didn't want you to be, sort of branded that you're getting ready to retire. Everybody had to do it. And when you went, I remember this instructor who was a retired Navy admiral saying, when you retire, you and your spouse, and he said it's important that your spouse be in this too, have a couple choices to make. And one of the things is, where you're going to work. And he says there's 3 primary places where military people go to work in reasons. And none of the answers is bad, but you can't maximize all 3 of them usually. So he said some people will choose to go back to a hometown or some favorite place they were assigned during the military to work. That's fine. Maybe they have a house there and all. That's fine. Some people will try to go for the money, and that's okay too, And some people will go for the job. And I think my wife and I both talked about that, and I wanted to go for the job. I wanted to go for something that was important, that would make a difference. During my military career, I was always in research and development, and during the time that I was there, software became more and more important. I worked on a satellite program. Satellite had 64K of memory on it, and we thought that was great, but later on, software was connecting everything. It was getting more complex. It was doing more of the jobs, even as it's doing more now. So I thought that being in a place that was dealing with software, like the Software Engineering Institute, would be a really great place. In addition, though, one of my mentors, one of the men I worked for earlier in my career, was a guy who ended up being a 4-star general, head of the Air Force for a while. And when he retired, he went to work at the Jet Propulsion Lab, which is an FFRDC run by Caltech. Mm-hmm. And some people asked him, well, why didn't you go to one of the big defense contractors? You'd have made more money, if you went to Boeing or Lockheed or whomever. And he said, well, first of all, he loved the space community, and Caltech is maybe one of the preeminent places in the world for doing space projects. He also said, being part of Caltech was a really extra advantage mm-hmm. because it allowed you to be around a great university and continue to learn. So I remembered that. And so when the opportunity came not only to go to an FFRDC that was involved in software, but one connected to a great university like CMU, it just seemed like the natural thing to do.
Yeah, it's so another example of where the importance of a mentor
yes.
and the commitment to lifelong learning led you here.
Yes.
Did you have much exposure to the SCI when you were in uniform?
Not a whole lot, but some. I was stationed at Hanscom in Boston when the SCI contract was let, the first contract, and that was run by Hanscom. And so I remember it being announced. I remember meeting Watts Humphrey, and he'd been here only about a year or so. He came up to talk at a conference on the work they were doing on software metrics. I was involved in projects that had a lot of software in them at the time. I was involved in the Space Defense Operation Center contract for Cheyenne Mountain. And, so what SCI was doing was important to me, but it was more as a learner, not as I didn't have a direct relationship with SCI at the time.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Watts, and there's so many extraordinary people I've met in my mm-hmm. relatively brief time here at the SCI compared to you, Paul. And that's one of the things that keeps us here, right?
Yes.
It's the quality of the people, the quality of the organization, and the mission. Now, there's a catalog of things that you could point to, and certainly we don't have time to enumerate them all, but if you had to draw the viewer's attention to a few accomplishments that you're maybe most proud of or you feel are the most important here at the SEI, what would those be?
Well, I think I encouraged people well, and I think that's one of the primary things a boss of scientists and engineers should do. Scientists and engineers, they're self-motivated. They wouldn't have gone to so much schooling and work at such a hard profession if they weren't motivated. So the motivation factor is not a big thing. But like everybody else, they worry about things, And I think if you can make them feel secure in their job, secure in their future, make them feel that you want them to develop themselves and be recognized and rewarded for their great work, they'll just work that much harder, and they won't fret about other things. So that's something I tried to do in the Air Force when I was in charge of science and technology organizations. I had about 3 years where I was in charge of what was then called Rome Laboratory up in New York, which was an independent laboratory for the Air Force. And then later, I ran the Air Force Research Lab when they had consolidated those independent labs into one big lab. And I had 4 years running that. And I think the instincts I had at Rome Lab and at AFRL played off also here at SEI. Scientists and engineers are self-motivated. Let them do their stuff. Make them do their best work.
Yeah, so I think there's another through line there with sort of mentoring the best out of people in this unique situation. And we're at this intersection, this convergence of academia, defense, and the university broadly, right? So I should not sell short, right, the contribution the university makes overall to defense. So one of the things I like best about being here is, as you've described, is being able to have exposure and participation in those three communities simultaneously. Yes.
And, being part of Carnegie Mellon, which is a great tech university, it's actually a great university in some other things too, especially drama. But it's really great in technology. And some of its key techs are the same techs that are important for us, software, AI, cybersecurity. I mean, they're also a good engineering school, a good science school, and as I said, a great drama school, great policy school, right? So being at a school like that, you're exposed to so many ideas, so many bright and rising stars, sometimes established stars, that you get to know. And all that kind of helps educate you and motivate you as an individual too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Paul, you're departing the SEI, and we must select a successor. Now, you're the only SEI director I've known, and certainly anytime someone needs to take up the mantle after when you're departing, there's a number of considerations. But any thoughts about the search for your successor?
Well, sure. I mean, it's not really my job.
Sure.
We had two other long-term directors of SEI before me. Larry Druffel and Steve Cross, both did a great job, and shepherded us through the first 20 years. I got to shepherd us through the second 20 years pretty much, Each one of them was a little different. We're all different. One thing about people that as I've got older, I realize is everybody's unique. Everybody has special skills. And so the next person will probably be different than me and emphasize different things than me. As they go through this, they're looking. The world has changed since I came in too. The Defense Department's different. It's not even the Defense Department now. It's the Department of War. The ecosystem's different. When I came in 2004, large language models didn't exist. We'd gone through a couple of AI winters, but we weren't in the present AI summer, I guess is the way to say it, where things are doing so well. So that's gotten to be a lot more important than it once was. We've also changed some of our ideas even on software engineering. We were much concerned in 2004 still with software measurement and quality and process improvement, which was important. But now we're much more concerned with speed and scale and iterative techniques to bring software to bear faster. And I like that movement. I think it is important. And I think we're seeing the software world with its iterative techniques now influencing the hardware world and the cyber-physical world, where people are saying, well, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't always go for that big bang in development. Maybe we need to make systems that we can continue to upgrade weekly, daily, monthly, whatever the pace is, so that we can continue to improve them.
The evolution is essential, isn't it?
Evolution
right?
is essential.
To be relevant for our sponsors, the Department of War,
Yes.
for the university, and as professionals, as engineers and scientists, we want to ensure that things we're doing are important and forward-facing, right?
Exactly.
A slightly different question. So executives often leave a letter for their successor. I'm sure you know this tradition. Now, there's
Yes.
things that will only be between you and that successor, but is there anything that you would want to say publicly that you would impart as advice or wisdom to your successor?
Well, first of all, I might want to say nothing because I don't want to presume that he needs to be told or she needs to be told anything. But if I had to say something, I'd say, know your customers, cherish your people, be kind, be ethical, work hard.
I think that's great advice. That is really great advice. On a personal level, Paul, as your time at the SEI comes to a close and you think about what comes next, certainly one of the themes today has been lifelong learner.
Yep.
Kind of boundless curiosity for things. Are there things that maybe were on the list for a long time you could never get to that you can now engage in?
Oh gosh, there's too many. When I hit 50, I was in the Air Force, and I had to give a talk that night to a bunch of people. And during the talk, I said, it just hit me that I'm turning 50 tonight, and a third of my life's over. And it took a while for people to understand what I said. But I said, I'm entering middle age now. I'm 50. And then they realized I was saying I was going to live to 150. Well, now next month I'm turning 75, so now half of my life's over. So I have another 75 years to sort of explore all these things. As a kid, like I said earlier, I was interested in everything. There was a time when I thought I was going to be a writer.
Really?
And I'm still fascinated with that.
Sorry, I missed out. So fiction or nonfiction or?
Both.
Really? Excellent.
Yes.
So we may see a book.
Yeah, although that's I have learned that's a little harder than it first looks. But I would like to write. I'd like to continue to work in the scientific community somehow, in some way. Maybe through the professional societies, you can kind of continue to go to conferences and network with your peers. Maybe to help other people that are on their way up, just as a unpaid advisor, just a friend. Sometimes you need a friend to kind of see you through tough times, And I love sports. I love exercise. When I was in L.A., long time ago, and my oldest was like 5 years old, and they asked him in school, everybody to write down what their father's favorite hobby was. And what do you think mine was? This was in April. That's a hint.
This was in April.
He said my favorite hobby was doing taxes. That's not really my favorite hobby, but
no, I said that's more just a chore that we have.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But, so you're not going for a CPA then?
No. But there's so many things to do, And my wife loves to garden. I've mostly been a bulk helper. I can move the mulch around and stuff like that. Maybe now I can get a little more finesse in gardening or something like that.
Excellent. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for all your years of service to the country and here at the SEI, and certainly it's been a pleasure to be part of your team. And thank you for talking with us today.
Well, thank you, Matt, and everybody connected with SEI. It's been such a joy to be here. It's going to be a little sad to go. I know it's time, but it's going to be a little sad because everybody here's my friends now.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, a reminder to our audience, our podcasts are available pretty much any place you can find a podcast, including SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as the SEI's own YouTube channel. If you like what you've seen and heard today, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks again for joining us.